So we've been kind of going back and forth about YAML. Somebody suggesting TOML. I remind everybody I made the TOML logo, blah, blah, blah. And I was reminded of the Norway problem, which I've heard so much about, and everybody loves throwing YAML under the bus. You know, YAML is still the simplest way to write structured data by humans. And you know, INI is a pain in the ass. JSON is a pain in the ass. The amount of extra work you have to do in JSON or whatever and the amount of times you have to correct leaving off a comma or having too many commas in your list or all of that stuff, to me, is not worth it. It's just not worth it. That's why I am a huge fan of YAML. And YAML, YAML is made for humans to edit it. And that means you're going to have humans make mistakes and stuff, but yeah, but that Norway one, so let me make another directory here. So making really, the YAML, Norway problem. So I don't have to tell you what it is. Most of you already know, but the bottom line is, if you have a Norway problem in your code, you're writing YAML wrong. The problems for YAML that are actually matter are more problematic. Like other ones, like the one where you could run code at one point, which, you know, isn't included in any major parsers these days. But yeah, because I mean, YAML gets YAML's for humans, and there's nothing better. There really isn't. There's nothing better than YAML out there. TOML is not better. I thought TOML was going to be a nice balance between, you know, especially when you're dealing with text, you know, large amounts of text, or nesting. It's just better. S expressions are, in my opinion. I don't know what those are. Nobody does. So everybody knows YAML. And that's the reason to learn it. It's kind of already won. People have been trying to push Q and all these other things, and that's fine. And they tried to push TOML for years. How many years have we been working on getting people to use TOML? And there are some groups that do it, but it's when it comes to nested data, or to, like, you know, object-based data, which is what most of the data in a configuration file is these days, then TOML's horrible. I mean, because you have to do all the crazy shit with, like, dotted notation, and you have to repeat yourself, and it's just horrible. So yeah, yes, it's annoying, but easy to work around. And this is the thing that worries me, is because people are like, well, you know, what about automate? If you're creating automatic data, if you're writing data from some sort of automation as YAML, and you are not escaping the keys, shame on you. But if you're just editing a file by hand because you're using YAML for what God intended, God being Igni, then you're not going to have a problem. And I don't see what the big deal is. I don't. You know, first of all, if you're listing out all your countries this way, I mean, you know, why are you doing that? So, yeah, it's the best option for technical standpoint. I still think, okay, how are you going to do composition and linking? Do you have something for me? Because every time I bring this up, nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. So the merge operator, which is standard, it's in the YQ and everything. YAML has the merge operator and linking. Others don't. And they will cite that as an advantage. And I cannot tell you how big of an omission that is. We actually saved ourselves from tons of extra work doing an open API thing just by using the merge operator. If you don't know what the merge operator is, I'll tell you really quick. I did a video about it, but YAML merge operator. It's a recommended but supported in everything we've checked so far. And what it does is it lets you compose one thing into the other one. And you're like, oh my God, why would you ever do that in a configuration file? When you start getting really big configuration files and your configuration files are becoming sort of like software and you're importing them and stuff like that, you're going to want that, I promise. If you're going to do any significant like size application, you're going to want the ability to include or to import. And you're going to want to say right where it's at. And the really great thing about the merge operator is that the merge operator actually puts it in there, and then anything you provide after that, it will override what you just put in. So it's a way of doing kind of inheritance or polymorphism, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's polymorphism, but you get my point. And Terraform HCL does it better. I mean, maybe. I don't particularly like HCL because it's not something that an average person can sit down and use. It was made by engineers. And as you know, I'm like really focused on making things that are really, really, really simple for people who are non-technical to use. And YAML is that. YAML can grow with a person. But by that same argument, you could say, well, that makes the Norway problem fatal. Because a beginner would do this and they would get really, 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 really burned by it. Because a beginner would come in and go, oh man, look how pretty this is. A writer will say. I keep using the keg user, the standard keg user, which I hope will be a writer who knows how to use a text editor. And YAML is going to be the primary configuration format for keg, for making a keg. So, and yeah, I mean, the keys that are there are risky, right? Are there going to be people burned by the fact that no is actually false? I think it was absolutely brain dead for Igni to make anything but true and false, true and false. I think that was really, really, really stupid. And if I had one thing to change, that would be it. I think that's got it. I mean, that's, as Ryan Dahl says, who made Node, those things that you thought were cute, don't do those things. And that is exactly one of those things. That is exactly what it is. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's trying to make it more human friendly at the expense of really significant bugs. Yeah, having aliases for a type is just so off the chart stupid. But if you look at the other stuff where they start losing their way in YAML, the stuff, I mean, they tried to do it so you could specify different schemas, and it became a full-blown language at one point, right? And yeah, and so to me that's, I mean, Igni, I have never met Igni. I actually know a guy who learned how to do Unix and Linux from Igni, pair programming with him at Hewlett Packard. Greg, if you guys know him. And I understand Igni's a really, really great dude and where he keeps himself a lot. The guy that made YAML. I actually am looking forward to meeting him one day. I hope I get to. He's quite the brain, actually. He's one of these very unsung heroes. Something like John Gruber, who made Markdown, who just keeps moving on and doesn't get famous for it and everything. Can you imagine being the person who invented YAML? I mean, today, I mean, looking around and see everything in it. I mean, I'm none of the stuff that I've ever, my stuff's usually more esoteric. I mean, maybe after I die, people will pick up, maybe keg adoption will pick up a little bit, and I'll be able to say, hey, look, most of the world is using keg to exchange knowledge. That would be pretty freaking awesome. And I can clip this video and then go back and say, hey, remember that when I said that one day? I mean, I can dream, right? You just never know. This is the thing with Igni or with Tom, who is a great dude who made Toml, right? And also, GitHub and Gravatar and all those things. Any one of these these techies, they don't see it coming. You know, they have like one while. I'm sure Tim Berners-Lee didn't think he was going to become the father of the World Wide Web. You know, they just said, oh, let's try this out. You know, and then every once in a while, like something just really hits with everybody. It goes viral really fast. And that's never been my good fortune. I've invented some pretty cool stuff. In fact, the comment on one of my libraries on CPAN is, why the hell isn't everybody using this? This thing is amazing. It's because I don't have very good marketing. So, you know, I think some of my ideas are pretty sound. I've been told that anyway. So anyway, but the YAML thing, that was a huge mistake. But it's not a mistake that's going to cause anybody to stop using YAML. If you're, I mean, to me, this, like Norway, very clearly, if I were using 2-letter abbreviations for something, I would absolutely put quotes around those, no matter what, because it's not, you know, there's not just, I mean, it's anything that's significant. I usually quote it anyway, even if I'm using JSON. That's another thing, right? So JSON paths, they have the same problem. Because if you have like spaces or something in there, you can have a JSON path. You can have a JSON object that has emojis and all kinds of stuff in they're all valid keys. But you know, you have to quote them if you're going to do that. It changes the whole notation. And so I think, but it's fair to say that the only people who are going to know about that is people who deal with structured data all the time. Terminal scapegoats. Yeah. Oh yeah. Terminal scapegoats. That's a big one too. Inbound versus outbound. Is handling inbound. Yes. So anyway, that's been my thing. This is actually one of my biggest pet peeves. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with YAML. This is why I think everybody should put a V in front of their semantic versions. Did you hear what I said, Octeta? Octeta, you're like the only project I've ever seen who tags their stuff on GitHub without a V in front of their name, and it causes all kinds of problems. So yeah, I mean, this is not a number. It is not a number in any universe, but YAML does think it's a number on occasion. So that's really annoying. So do a lot of syntax highlighters. Hey, good night. I'm pretty good, actually. I found my bugs and everything. Most of them, I think. People tag versions with a V. Oh, I love it when they do that. I think everybody should do that. I think that is mandatory. If I had my way, I would have put that in the semantic version specification. Because it's just too easy to try to use that thing. Dude, the semver thing includes dash whatever the fuck, right? You know that, right? So if you're using it as a number, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to prove it. So you should treat it as a string. I agree it's a string. But the problem is that YAML and JSON both are required to have integer types, number types. And so that's the reason. See all these? Dash beta, whatever. You should always be treating this thing as a string no matter what. And the only surefire way to be sure that every system on the planet treats that as a string is to put a V in front of it. And believe it or not, I hate to say this. In fact, I have seriously considered putting a letter in front of my ISOSAC identifiers on my keg, because there are still systems out there where if you don't have an initial letter, you can't use it as an identifier, which is stupid. I think that's really stupid, but that is, you know, in fact, the original version of keg, the unique identifiers, ISOSEC identifiers had a K in front of them instead of just the number, just so people would know what it is. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that, because that's like, you know, nobody wants to do that. That's not fun. Wait, where am I going? I'm lost. I've lost my place. What else is new? Anyway, so yeah, definitely put the V in there. If you don't put the V in there, you're a bad person. You know, I love you, Ryan, but you're still a bad person if you don't put the V in there. You gotta put the V in there. Just put the V in there, and the world will be, and my tag program will work. And you'd be like the one-off who doesn't do that. Wait, where was I? I can't even find it. I am so bad. Keep it short and simple. Do you have an opinion on headless CMS solutions? Yeah, sort of. VMock You don't need version in the version string to know it's a version string. It should be marked as such already in the metadata. I agree. I agree with that. That's just not happening. We were looking at the YAML thing and I actually closed it, I'm pretty sure. So I apologize for that. I made a mistake. We lost it. Where's the Norway link again? So we can go back. Why implicit type removed? Oh, yeah, that's the one. Hitch. Or I got it again. Okay, here we go. So, you should never need a versions. Oh, I think you should always put it there. Even if the only reason you do it is because the rest of the freaking world does it. Conventions. I'm the first guy to throw convention under the bus and do it my way. But there are some things that it's not worth the battle. One of them is not using YAML. For now, anyway. Or putting a V, not putting a V in your tags on your GitHub versions. Also, what's that? What kind of crazy person doesn't put a V in front of semver? It's a joke. It's a joke. I get it. I know it's a problem. I mean, I don't want anybody to be offended. So, also having -10 suffix for distribution revision as 10 is spec file. Yeah, I don't see. It's a string, right? I think the biggest mistake is people do think they look at semver and they think they're numbers and they're not. Making mountains out of holes. I will die on those mountains made out of holes. Well, me too. I mean, there's certain ones that I think we're kind of on the same page there. Countries. Tannis is on. We should go watch him instead of me. So countries. We have countries here. I mean, that's really bad, right? This is bad. Value excellence. I do value excellence too, but I don't value excellence at the expense of simplicity. So if avoiding one really esoteric, I also don't use semicolons in my JavaScript. Sue me. There are people who say that is like the word. That is one of the most visceral fights in all of tech, is whether to put semicolons in your JavaScript or not. And I have been on both sides of that fight. I don't know why, but like a World of Warcraft raid comes to mind. I have been on both sides of that fight. I've played for the Scourge and I played for whatever. And I got to tell you, yes, please shout out head. Thank you. I got to tell you that I think that I watched a really great video on that, and I'm semicolons are the way. Yeah. So I do think the cognitive overhead of when you need a semicolon and not is so overwhelming that the very, very few isolated cases we're not having one, which you should never do anyway, in my opinion. Haskell programmers might complain because they can't do dot each on their arrays or whatever the lists. And, but yeah. Any semicolons as line endings, a dumpster fire. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why I dropped the semicolons, because you don't need them. There's 4 specific edge cases where you need a semicolon. Every other time, not having a semicolon creates the expectation that you should have them, and you end up not even putting them in the right places anyway and forgetting them. So you might as well just get rid of all of them. And I'm on board with that. Just, yeah, people are going to yell at me. That's going to be a separate video. Just stop using semicolons in JavaScript as well. And that is going to definitely get some hellfire. People hate me for saying that. I actually listened to a very rational guy make a video about how to do it, and I really, 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 really appreciate it. Stringer afloat. So let's back to the YAML. The world's most buggy name. Oh my God. This is terrifying. I will not even lie. Here's the thing though. Doesn't Christopher know? You know what's funny? My wife's friend, her first name is Nil. Like Nil. It's literally Nil. So she would be one of these people. I don't know about YAML, but Um, so yeah, I mean that's annoying. That to me that's the most annoying thing so far. Surname none. Yeah, with strict YAML. Yeah, I mean there are already strict forms of YAML parsers that fix this problem. What about Bobby? Beat Bob. Yeah, I don't know. You can get into logical limits, block statements. Yeah, but the problem is that you got to balance simplicity with structure. And do I need to bring up XML or HTML? I mean, and I tend to be more okay with simplicity because complexity has really kept everyone from participating, and that's my whole shtick with Kig. Is complexity has screwed everybody up, and they're trying to do it with Markdown now again. They're trying to make Markdown too complex, and it's preventing people from participating who have the ability to and good information to share, but no way to share it because they have to go through a gatekeeping tool someplace. That really annoys me. And so I tend to land on the side of simplicity at the expense of the one or two like random things like this. And I'm pretty sure Igni agrees. Of course, he made it. So, I mean, it's YAML's pretty damn complex. I imagine, I've been going through Pagan for how long, and I know I'm absolutely terrified that one day I'm going to find some Norway problem with all of the Pagan syntax, and I'm going to be like, oh my god, because I mean, I made the syntax for Pagan. It's an entire meta language, and I'm just, like for example, I've been thinking about adding capture, angle brackets, which are pretty standard in other forms of Pagan, and I'm like, if I add that, what am I going to do? Is there some edge case that I'm totally going to miss, and I do worry about that, but yeah, it's fun. Yeah, that they had that same problem in Go with, what's Pagan built on? I don't know what that means. Pagan is its own thing. We should do another video on it. I did a video on it actually, but I'll just mention it since I mentioned it. Go to pagan.dev and go read about it. It's this language here that I made. It's 100% stolen from other languages, from Brian Ford's Peg example, mostly from ABNF, from EBNF, from a lot of Go syntax, and a lot of what was I going to say? Just regular expression notation. That is the expanded form of it. So it's kind of a mashup of all that, because that's what I wanted. I wanted all this stuff in there. Anyway, so much for that YouTube video.